Okay, guys, recording in progress. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our class today, Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. I wish that you did very well on the midterm. Guys, there are a few announcements, and it will be also sent via OWL that next Monday we'll have 2 classes to recover the class that I missed when my father passed away. So next Monday, as agreed with you, all of you guys, that our next Monday we'll have 2 sessions. The first session from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and the second session will have 1 hour break. Then we'll have 1 to 4 p.m. We will have like I'll give you in the second session like 30 minutes break to be prepared for the quiz. The quiz will have like some code writing, but it would be a very simple one. I'll give you an example before the quiz, how the question will looks like. So no worries, you would be aware about everything. There's no surprises. This is not my way to surprise my student in the questions. So the first announcement that next Monday we'll have 2 sessions, 9 to 12 noon, 9 in the morning till 12 noon, then 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. We will have a bigger quiz, like 20 marks quiz. It will be separated into 2 parts. The first part will be called the quiz 3 and it weighs 10 marks, and the second quiz, which is a quiz 4, it will be, but they will be run at the you can run both one after each other. You will have enough time to answer both the quizzes. They would be simple. Don't think there's a surprises. 15-minute per quiz would be more than enough, so it would be like in terms of number of questions and the required time less than quiz 1 and 2. The second thing, today I will release lab 4 and 5. For those who did not demo lab 3, please do it today. Today is your last chance to do it during the lab, and I agreed with the TA to have it today for everybody as online. Lab 3, 4 and 5 would be due for the submission on the system next week, next Wednesday, before the lab at 1 p.m. would be the deadline. And for the demo, you should demo between 1:30 and 4:30 to your TA. For those who are living in London, you will do it in person. For those who are living outside London, you will do it online. Next, the Monday after, which is June 27, I believe, would be our final exam in our regular class, in the classroom assigned in the announcement. And also the exam would be in person, a closed book exam, 3 hours exam. Any questions about how we will proceed till the end of the term? We are almost there. You know, it's a very short course, 6 weeks course, so it is run very quick. Any questions? No questions. Okay, I'll stop recording now. Okay, let me share my screen and open today's class. So we have unit 7 today. Can you see my screen? Thank you, Omar. So today, if you remember, we had in unit 5, I believe, or unit 4, classes part 1. Today we will continue with part 2. So we will review the instance, field, and methods, passing object or as arguments to method overloading, the toString method, and the aggregation within the classes and the instances. Review of the instance and field. Just as a reminder, each instance of the class has its own copy of instance variable. For example, the rectangle class defines the length and width. Each instance of rectangle have different values stored in length and width field. Instance method require that an instance of a class be created in order to be used. Instance method typically interact with instance field or calculate values based on those fields. So, static class member, we talk about those, but we will repeat them. Static fields and the static methods. We have both, if you remember. We talk about static field and the static methods. Do not belong to a single instance of the class. So they are not belong like to the instance A of the class. To invoke a static method or use a static field, the class name rather than the instance name is used. So we'll use the class name instead of the instance name. For example, double value equal math, which is the class name, dot square root static method 25. So find the square root of the number 25. And here we'll not call the instance. If I call the instance X or Y, I will use the class name. So the class fields are declared using the static keyword between the access specifier, and we talk about access specifier, public, private, and protected. Field type like private, static, integer, instance count equals 0. So we are here, we are defining a variable as integer, but we make it a private as access specifier and the static. We use the static keyword. The field is initialized 0 only once, regardless the number of times the class is instantiated. Primitive static fields are initialized to 0 if no initialization is performed. If I don't initialize it to 1, 3, 5, whatever, it will be initialized as 0 if I didn't initialize it. Example. So we have a class called countable. We declare a field called instance count and we initiate it to 0 and we make it static. Public countable instance count plus a plus. Public integer get instance return instance count. So here in a static demo, which have the main integer object count, countable, from countable object 1, object 2, object 3, object count equal object 1 dot get instance count, system dot out print line, object plus instance of the class were created. So here as a static, we call it how many times? 3 times. So 3, object 1, object 2, object 3. So method can also be declared static by placing the static keyword between the access modifier or specifier, we call it sometimes, and the return time method. Public static double miles, kilometer double times miles. When a class contains a static method, it is not necessary to create an instance of the class in order to use the method. Double kilos per mile metric dot miles to kilometer 1. So here it's a class that will change once we define it as a static, so no need to create an instance of the class in order to use the method. So here we have metric, and we know that each mile equal 1.609 kilometer, and normally roughly we could say that each mile equal 1.6 kilometer, and here return kilometers divided by 1.6 in order to return it from kilometers to mile. And here miles to kilometer. Here we multiply it by 1.609, and here we divide it. So we use the scanner to enter the kilos or miles. System.enter distance in miles. You will put it here, kilos, metric, miles to kilometer. We call the method immediately without having an instance. Then it will return then miles, kilometers to miles, then we define it. And we said, since we define it as a static, no need to instantiate the object, we can call it immediately. Question still here with the static keyword. Static methods are convenient because they may be called at the class level. They are typically used to create utility classes such as math classes in Java standard library. Static method may not communicate with instances field, only static fields. So if we have a static method, we will deal with the static fields. So here we define static method. However, here we define a static method. Just to differentiate, here we define static field. Is that clear, guys? Questions? Passing objects as argument method. So if we have a function and we want to pass argument, so can we pass object to a method? Let's see. Object can be passed to a method as argument. Java passes all arguments by value, and we talk about by value and by reference earlier, and we said by value, the value will deal locally. Any value out of the scope of calling will remain the same as it outside of that scope. But by reference, but Java doesn't have by reference. So by reference, it should be changed, but Java don't have by reference. When an object is passed an argument, the value of the reference variable is passed. The value of the reference variable is an address or reference to the object in memory. A copy of the object is not passed, just a pointer to the object. We don't pass a copy, we will pass the address of that object in the memory, so the new calling function can deal with it. When a method receives the reference variable as an argument, it is possible for the method to modify the content of object reference by the variable. And since we are sending the address, then any change in the method will be reflected on the object values or fields values. So it is somehow called by reference. Question on this? Do you want me to repeat or explain more on this? Okay. So passing object as an argument. So we have a class called inventory item. We have two fields, description as type of string, and it is a private, and also private units as integer. Then we have public inventory item, and we send an argument D as a string. Inventory item, we send D as a string, U as integer. Set description, D as a string, void. Another public method called set units, U as integer, and it's void, does not return anything. Then another public get description and it's return a string. Then get units and it return a value of integer and it's public method. So here is the code of this. So we have public inventory item. We have public inventory item also. And we have D, string D, description D, units equal 0, public inventory item, string D, and integer unit. And here are the fields. Then void, all the functions are defined here based on the class UML diagram. Guys, expect some question in the final like this. I give you the UML, then you have to write the code. I believe this is less confusion, right, for you. So practice on something like this. Okay. So public class pass objects based on this one. And sometimes I will give you this, I'll give you that, then I'll ask you to do the main method. I'll give you the structure, you should have write the thing in between. So public class pass object, public static void main string args, inventory item. Then from inventory item, I define the new object, I call it item, which is a new, and we send to it wrench and the 20. And these are, if you see, 3 constructors, one without argument, one with 1 argument, the second one with 2 arguments. So those are constructors. Then we ask display item. We call display item, and we send the item. So here it's a method, it's a static method, and we pass to it what? Object. We pass the object as an argument. Then what this function will do, or what this method will do, it will have an argument which is an object of inventory item class, then print the description, get description, units, get units from here. The getter and setter, if you remember. Here are the setter and here are the getters. So it will print the description and the unit of the item. Question on this code. Passing object as argument. So we have display item item. Then we will send the address of the object, which is initiated by wrench and the 20, the size of our, or wrench with size 20 unit. Public static display item, and this one will send I, and we send address of I and getting the values to be printed here. Returning reference from method. Methods are not limited to returning the primitive data types. Method can return reference to object as well. Just as with passing parameter, a copy of the object is not return only its address. Method return time, return new inventory, hammer and 15. So here we return new values. Instead of wrench and the 20, we change it to hammer and 15. So we can return or change the value in the original object, which was wrench and the 20. Is that clear? Questions? Returning object from a method. Item get data. An inventory item object, description hammer and 15. So when we return it, then it will be returned to this. Methods overloading. What do we mean by methods overloading? 2 or more methods in a class have the same name, however their parameter list must be different. If we did method overloading, we have the same method, which is the constructor, one without arguments, one with 1 argument, and the other one with 2 arguments. Here we call it method or constructor overloading, or in general method overloading, because the constructor is a method. So 2 or more methods in a class may have the same, however their parameter list must be different. In order to know when I call that method, if I'm sending no parameter, I will use the one without parameter or arguments. If I have 1 argument, then I will call the same method name, but with 1 argument if there are 2 with 2 arguments. So public static integer square, this is my math integer number, and it's returning number by number. Public static double, see, square double number, then it's return number by number. It's both find a square, but if I'm sending an integer, it will use this one. And if I'm sending using a double primitive data type, then it will use the second definition. So here we call it method overloading. So here we have this one. Then we'll static main string, integer number and double D number, integer and double. Scanner, then we have a new scanner to get it from keyboard. Get next integer, get next double, then we'll call it and send a D number. So if I'm sending a double number, I will use this one, and if I'm sending an integer, I will use the first one. Questions? Java used the method signature, name, type of parameter, and order of parameters to determine which method to call. This process is known as binding. The return type of the method is not part of the method signature. So if I'm here, make it the return value of the method, either it's mentioned or not mentioned, or it is different, it doesn't matter. What I'm aware, that name and the type of parameter or the order of parameter. For example, if I'm having here two parameters, integer, comma, double, x, and here I have double, then integer. So when I'm sending integer double, I will use this one. And if I'm sending double integer, then I will use this one. So how I can differentiate, or how Java differentiate? The name is the same. It is the matter of return type doesn't matter to me. It's the argument types and the argument order. So name, type of argument or parameters, and order of the parameters to determine. The process is non-binding. The return type is not part of that method signature. Is that clear? Clear or not? Guys, are you there? Okay, Jay, thank you. Just give me a second, guys. Okay, guys. Example. So I have a class called pay. I have get weekly pay, and here I have integer double, and here I have double only. Then return hours times pay rate, here yearly salary divided by 52 to get a weekly pay. So public static, string selection, integer hours, hourly rate, yearly rate, scanner keyboard, new scanner. Then I'll get the weekly rate paid. Then I'll get the hourly rate in dollars. And here I use a switch case H capital or H small, do this. Then a break, get S capital or S small. What is the annual? Then we'll do the gross pay yearly. Break, default system, invalid selection. Any other way, invalid selection. Is that okay, guys? I think it's clear. Also, the comment here is clear. Okay, thank you, guys. So, overloaded constructor. Same as what we see before in our previous example. Before we're talking about constructor overloading. Class constructor, as I told you, it's also a method. At the endpoint, it's a method. This means that they can also be overloaded. Overloading constructor give programmers more than one way to construct an object of that class. All of the previous restriction on the overloading apply to constructor as well, which means the constructor doesn't have return type, but if it's have, so what is it? The method name and the parameter, number of parameters, or the parameter order. So revisiting the default constructor. Java automatically provide a default constructor for a class if a constructor is not explicitly written. So if we don't write a constructor, Java by default create a default constructor. What is a default constructor? It will set all numeric values to 0. It's a revision. We talk about this. And it will make all character instances field to empty character. All reference, it will be null, and all Boolean, it would be false. So remember those. All numeric field would be 0. All character field would be empty character. All reference instance field, if we sending an instance as an argument, or an instance of object of a class, or an object as an argument, then it would be null, and also Boolean instances field will be assigned false values. We as a programmer can provide a non-argument constructor. This is a constructor that accepts no arguments. If a constructor that accepts argument is written, we should also write a no argument constructor. So normally, if we have a constructor with values, then we have also to write a one with no argument. If we write a no argument constructor, we should provide the initialization of all instances fields as a programmer. But even if we didn't initialize, Java will initialize them. The toString method. What is the toString method? A toString method of a class can be called explicitly. How? Stock XYZ company and new stock XYZ 9.62. System.out XYZ company.toString. What does that command do? However, the toString method does not have to be called explicitly, but is called implicitly whenever you pass an object of the class to print or print line. When we are passing an object to be printed, then we have to add toString. Stock, new stock, same, then print line XYZ company. So what is the difference between this one and this one? Who can told me? This is in a class practice 2. I will add it to our for bonus question. You have to use those two examples and show me the difference in the output and explain like one line as a PDF. I will create it today in OWL. I will create it tonight in OWL, and you will have till Friday to submit your answer. Okay. ToString method is also called implicitly whenever you concentrate on an object of the class, concatenate an object of the class with a string. So this one, the stock data is plus the object. Okay. ToString method again. All objects have a toString method that return the class name and the hash of the memory address of the object. We can override the default method with our own to print out more useful information. Example, this is the class of stock. symbol string, share price double. Then we have the constructor and we send some string price double, then get symbol string, get share price double to string string. So here is the code. Here is the code. So we get the sim and the price, then we get the symbol, then share price, then here to string, string, trading symbol, and return str. This is the toString function. Public class stock demo. This is the main stock XY new stock system.output print line XYZ company. So here's the output XYZ and 962. Try with toString or without, and show me the difference and your explanation of this. This would be the second questions, the question practice that I will post in OWL tonight for bonus. The equals method. When we use the equal operator, it's used with the reference variable to the memory address of the object are compared if they are equal or not. The contents of the object are not compared. All objects have an equals method. The default operation of the equals method is to compare memory addresses of the object, just like the equal operator. So here, the stock class and equal method. If we try the following, stock 1 new stock GMX 55, stock 2 also the same. If stock 1 equal stock 2, this is a mistake. System.out print line, the object are the same, else are not the same. Only the addresses of the object are compared. So the second question, practice bonus question for today is in slide 38. How to have it as needed. Here we'll compare the addresses. What is the solution? Solve it and submit it in OWL. I'll post it in OWL tonight also. Sounds good? To get more bonus, guys. The equals method. Compare objects by their contents rather than by their memory address. Instead of simply using the equal operator to compare two stock objects, we should use, here is the solution, but I need you to practice it and print the screen in your answer from your compiler and explain by writing in PDF submission why this is happening. I need you to make sure that you understand the concept. Public Boolean equals, Boolean status, if symbol dot equals object to dot symbol and share price equal object to share price, then return a true, else false. So we have to compare the fields, not the object itself. And here is the main method that will print that they are the same or they are the different. Just try this code in your compiler. So the second bonus question is very simple. The solution is in the handout, but I need you to show me that you apply it in your JDK. There are two ways to copy an object. You cannot use the assignment operator to copy a reference type. Reference only copy. This is simply copying the address of an object into another reference variable. Deep copy, which is the correct. This involves creating a new instance of the class and copying the values from one object into the new object. This is the correct way. Here we'll copy the address, and both objects or instances will deal with the same object in the memory. A copy constructor accepts an existing object of the same class and clones it. Stock object 2, symbol object 2 dot symbol object 2 dot share price, create a stock project, company 1 in new stock, company 2 new stock of company 1. This is a copy constructor, we call it. Aggregation. What do you mean by aggregation? Creating an instance of one class as a reference in another class is called object aggregation. Aggregation creates a has a relationship between objects. How? This is symbol in UML means relation. Course, string, instructor, course name, get instructor to string. Then in the instructor class, we'll have last name, first name, office number, instructor name, family name, and office. Set family name and in first name and office to string. So this means that course a class has an instructor. So here as field, it is an object. So both classes, if I have an instance of the course, by default, I have another instance of an instructor. So each course has an instructor. This is the clarification of this. For example, here, private string, course name, instructor, public course. Then we have the course name and the instructor. Then here we call the instructor. String get name, return course name, return instructor. String course name plus course name, then instructor information plus instructor return. This is to string. So the class instructor has last name, first name, office number. We get them, then we return them as a string. So here is the output. Course name, information, Dr. Ouda, first name, Abdul Qadir, and this is Dr. Ouda office. Okay. The this reference, or we call it this pointer. In C++, we call it this pointer. Here they call it this reference in Java. The this reference is simply a name that an object can use to refer to itself. The this reference can use to overcome shadowing and allow a parameter to have the same name as instance field. How's that happening? If I have a public course, then course name and instructor name. So this dot course name, then we are pointing to itself. This dot instructor shadowed the instance variable and take it here as local parameter variable. Questions? Is this clear? It's a pointer to the object itself. Questions? So we are done with the first chapter. So we will start with the second chapter, which is chapter 8, arrays. So this is a very long chapter. So before we start, would you have like a 10 minutes break, guys? Okay, so let's meet back at 11:20. Sounds good? So you have 12 minutes break. Let's back at 11:20. I'll pause recording. Then we will back at 11:20. See you in like 12 minutes. Recording in progress again. We'll come back after the break. I'll share my screen again to start with unit 8. Can you see my screen? Hello, can you see my screen? Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, introduction to arrays. So we will cover the first three sections today. Then 4 and 5 and chapter 9, we leave them till next Monday. So, introduction to arrays. What is array? It's a primitive variables are designed to hold only one value at a time. Arrays allow us to create a collection of like values that are indexed. An array stores any type of data, but only one type of data at a time. An array is a list of data elements. So you'll ask me, is it only for a primitive data types? I'll tell you no. It can also store objects, array of objects, which would be discussed next Monday. So how to create an array? Array is an object, so it needs object and object reference. Declare a reference to an array that will hold integer. Integer, this brackets will tell the compiler to initiate array of integers as name of numbers. The next step, create the array and assign it addresses to numbers variable. So numbers, a new integer 6. What does that mean? An array of 6 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Normally we start indexing array by 0 and end by n, which is the 6 here, the number minus 1, which would be the last element in that array. Normally array element values will be initialized to 0. Array index always start at 0. Always start at 0. So it is possible to declare an array reference and create in the same statement integer array of integer, we call it numbers, and it has 6 elements. Array may be of any type, float, character, long, double, object, whatever. The array size must be a non-negative number, so it should be a positive number. It may be a literal value, constant, or variable. For example, final integer and array size equals 6. Integer number, a new integer of array size. Once created, an array size is fixed and cannot be changed. I cannot change the size of array at any time. Once I initiate it, then this should be fixed all the way. So, for example, numbers of 0 will contain 20, the other initialized by to 0. An array is accessed by the reference name, a subscript that identifies which element in the array to access. For example, number of 0 equal to 20. Pronounce number sub 0. Pronounce number sub 0. Array element can be treated as any other variable. They are simply accessed by the same and by the same name and a subscript. Example seen next slide. Array subscript can be accessed using variable such as for loop counters. See the second next slide. So for example here, this program shows the values being read into arrays element and then displayed. I have array demo1, then the main, we give it the final number as 3. Then we create number of employees, which is array of 3 employees. So we'll get the hours worked by employee number of employees by the 3 employees. So employee 1, then we'll get next integer employee 2, and we put it in the second element and third element. Then we will print the hours by each employee. The second one, we will have a for loop. For I equals 0, I less than number of employees, I plus plus. So we replace these things to print 3 lines and enter 3 by using a for loop, and then we will store it in the corresponding 0, 1, or 2 based on the 4, then we will print it in the same way. So this code is simpler than this one. They will perform the same. They will have the same result in the screen. However, this is more professional using the for loop. Questions? How to check the bound of the array? Array index always start at 0 and continue to array length -1. If we assume that array length is n, then it is still n-1. Start at 0 and end at n-1. So here, when I have the values array of 10 elements, that means we'll start at 0 and stop at 9. For loop, it's typical use I, j, and k as counting variable. It might help to think I as representing the word index. But is this a must? I can use any other symbols. It is very easy to be off by 1 when accessing arrays. So integer number in new integer 100. For I equal 1, I less or equal to 100, I plus plus, numbers I equal 99. Here the equal sign that we put here allows the loop to continue to index 100. However, we have 99, the last index, so it will give me an error, array index out of bounds exception. See example in the next slide. So here we have integer array and we have 4 or less or equal to 3. So it will give me exception in thread in Java index by 3, bounds for length 3 at, then I will attempt to store 4 number in a 3-element array 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is wrong. So here it should be from 0 to 2. Array initialization. Sometimes I can use without mentioning the index and how many items, then I'll call days 31, 28, 31, 30, 31, 30, 31, 31, 30. What are those? Who can guess? There are the number of days in each month: January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So days 0 is assigned 31, days 1, and here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we have an array of 12 items which represent the month of the year and how many days in each month. They will start at 0 and end at 11. See here. So that month index +1 to say month 1, month 2, month 3 has how many days. Alternate array declaration. So integer numbers. Also, we can use it like this. Multiple array can be declared on the same line. Integer number, codes, underscores. We alternate notation if each variable must have a bracket. So here we have 3 arrays: numbers, codes, underscores. Here integer numbers, codes, underscores. The score variable in this instance is simply an integer variable. So if we use this way and we left the score without, here they are all arrays. Here we have numbers and codes are arrays and the score is just a single variable. So here we'll talk about how we can process the array contents. Processing data in array is the same as any other variable. So if I have a gross pay of 3 times pay rate, pre and post increment works the same, plus score or score plus, they are working the same. Here is the example. This is the number of hours, index plus. So we'll print here, get each employee hour work, get the hourly pay rate, display each employee's gross pay. So we can deal with it as variable, but we have to put the index here to know that which item of the array we are working with. So if cost of 20 less than cost of 0, do something, or while value count not equal to 0, do the following statement. So we can use it with if, with for, with anything. How to get array length? So we can put integer size equal temperatures dot length, and here it will find the array length and it will contain 25. Index subscript 0 I less than temperature, which is 1 less than the array length, then we can print them. So integer number of test, we define array test. In new scanner, how many tests do you have? Then I will enter the number of tests. Then then I can define a new array called test, which is arrays of integer. How many values in this? Whatever the number I entered using the keyboard. Here is the example. Then we'll get keyboard to get next integer. Then we start integer entering scores. Here are the scores you enter. Then it can be printed as a list. Questions still here? The enhanced for loop. What do you mean by enhanced for loop? Simplified array processing, read only, always goes through all the elements, general for data type, element variable dot array statement. So integer number 369 for integer value numbers, system dot output, the next value is val. So here we use the enhanced for loop with arrays. So we put the array name, that integer value, which should equal to the length of numbers. Then we can print value 0, 1, 2. So we'll take the all index of numbers and replace it by value 1 by 1 at each iteration of the loop. Is that clear, guys, or you need more clarification? Clear? Yes, no? Guys, are you there? Okay, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Shivali. Reassigning array reference. Any array reference can be assigned to another array of the same type. For example, we have an array of integer called numbers of 10 elements, then numbers equal a new integer 5. If the first element of array are no longer has reference to it, it will be garbage collected. So here, reassigning the numbers. So this one, the 10 element, it will go to the garbage collector. It will go to the garbage collector. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This one we initiate this. Then when we change it to 5, the all 10 element array gets marked for garbage collection, and we have a new one. We have a new one. That's why at the beginning we said if we have the array could not be changed, but if we change it and resize it, the previous one with the content will go to the garbage collection. This is not the way to copy an array. Integer array 1 equal, array 2 equal, array 1. This does not copy array. So array 1 holds an address to the array, array 2 holds an address to the array. So we are talking about the same memory location, same as an object. So for example, array 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, array 2 equal array 1. then array 1 0 equal 200, array 2 4 equal 1000. So whatever array 1 and array 2 are pointing to the same point. So 0 would be 200 and 4 1 2 3 4 would be 1000. So if we see when we print array 1 and array 2 that we have the same values because they are pointing. When we do this, we just give array 2 the same address of array 1 and the same element. They are pointing to the same memory location. Copying arrays, how it would happen? You cannot copy an array by merely assigning one reference variable to another. You need to copy the individual element for one array to another. So first array, second array, new integer, for I equals 0 to I less than first array dot length plus plus, second array of I equal first array of I. Here how I copy it. The content of first array element would be copied to the same position in the second array. The code copies each element of first array to each corresponding element of the second array. This is how we copy. Here, we are assigning the address of array 1 to the array 2. So both will pointing to the same memory location. Is that clear? How to copy an array? Questions? So here we are going to discuss the last topic that we will have today. So method calls with arrays. When a single element of an array is passed to a method, it is handled like any other variable. So when we send the single element of array, we pass it to the method. Is handled by any other variable. More often, you will want to write method to process array data by passing the entire array, not just one element at a time. So the better way, the better programming habit, rather than sending element by element, then we can send the whole array, work with it, then return it back. So arrays are objects. Their reference can be passed to a method like array other object reference variable. So show array numbers, we have the address, public static show array for integer equal 1, array less than array of length, system print array of I plus space, then it will print 5 space 10 space 15 space till the end of the array. And here is an example. It will do the same. That number index plus 1, then the next integer. How do we compare arrays? Here we can see that the first and second array are equal. Boolean array equal true. For I equal first array dot length not equal second array dot length. Array equal false. While array equal and I less than first array dot length. If first array of I not equal second array, make it false. If arrays equal, system the arrays are equal, the arrays are not equal. So here we are comparing both arrays. Finding the highest value, integer highest number 0, for integer numbers high greater than highest equal number. So here how we will do it. To find the maximum value of an array, we will assign that the highest is equal 0. We'll make for loop to pass through the whole array and check it element by element. If the element we check is greater than the value of 0, then we will replace that value with highest. Then the highest will have the highest value. We will keep going till find the highest value. To find the lowest, we'll do the same. Then the lowest equal number of 0, which is the first element of the array. Then we start comparing it one by one. And if there are lower value, then we can change the lowest to the lowest value till we find the lowest value in the array or the highest value of the array. Questions? Here how we'll make total equal 0, then we'll pass one element by element to the array and add it to the total. This means total equal total plus units of I. Averaging an array, here we'll have 0. We'll add the total score. Then we can divide total by score length. Here is the example to have all of those. Here is the total. Here is the highest. Here is the lowest. Partially filled array. Typically, if the amount of data that an array must hold is unknown, the size of array to the largest expected number of elements, use a counting variable to keep track of how much valid data in this array. So for example, here I will initiate array with 100 elements. Then I can, while the number not equal -1 and count less than or equal 99, then keep enter till I enter -1 to quit. Input number and the keyboard were previously declared, and keyboard references as scanner object. Saving the content of an array to file, integer numbers 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, print, writer output file new values.txt, for I equals 0 less than number of length, output print line number, then output file.close, and we talk about file. So here we are saving an array into a text file. Questions? Reading the content of a file into an array. Final integer size is equal 5, assuming we know the size. Integer number equal a new integer size, for I equals 0. File equal a new file values.txt. Scanner input file a new scanner file. While input file has next and I less than number.length. Then numbers of I equal input file dot next integer I plus plus till we done with all elements in the file. Then we close the file, and at that time all the data of the array that was saved in the values file become saved in an array called numbers. How we return an array reference? A method can return a reference to an array. The return time of the method declared as an array public static double get array, double array, return array. So here we are returning a reference to the array. The get array method is a public static method that return an array of doubles. For example, here as an example, so we have a double get array, then we have the array, then we can return it. String arrays. Arrays are not limited to primitive data such as double float integer, but it also can hold a string. An array of string object can be created. String names, Bill, Susan, Stephen, Jane. Then it will be has name 0, name 1, name 2, name 3, and each one has an address. Then it will have the values that are initialized. This program, we can save the months. Then we can say January has 31 days, February has 28 days, using the index of the month that we create with this. And here we have array of string and associated array of this. Questions? Is that clear? Okay, thank you. If an initialized list is not provided, then it would be initialized as a string to null. If it is integer or values, it will be initialized to 0. So calling a string method on array of elements. String object has several methods, including to uppercase, compared to, equals, card, at. Each element of a string array is a string object. Method can be used same as we use it with an object of string. Then we can use it with array of string. Method using array index as before. So names.0 to uppercase. Then we change all letters to uppercase. Car letter names of 3.car at 0. Then has the first character of the fourth element. The length and the length field and the length method. Here for integer I less than 0, I less than name.length I plus plus, system.output print line names I.length. So arrays has a final field name length. String object have a method called length. To display the length of each string in a string array, we'll use it with index, then the length. An array length is a field. You do not write a set of parentheses after its name. A string length is a method. You will write the parentheses after of it. Array of objects, we'll talk about it next time. Any questions still here? Any question till here, guys? Okay, if you don't have any question, you are free to leave. You are free to leave. If you have any question, you can stay. I'll let you go left earlier because you have the demo today with Zahra, the TA. So I know that you have a lab, so I don't want it to be very harsh on you. So we are at the good situation. We might finish the curriculum by Monday. Then we don't have a class on Wednesday. So I'll keep it for you to work with lab 4 and 5. But if we need, we can use partially on next Wednesday. But most probably we don't have a class next Wednesday because we perform very well today. If you don't have any question, you are free to leave. Thank you guys, and see you next Monday at 9 a.m. Super, do you have any question?
No, everything's good.
Okay, see you next Monday.
Okay,
Munib,
thank
do you
you.
have
Bye-bye.
any question? Bye. Okay, Shivali, do you have any question?
Yes, sir. So I just kind of wanted to talk about my situation a little.